Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. I am here today with my good friend Amy, who is the founder of Amy Tangerine. We'll talk more about her name in a bit. And she is also the author of Craft the Life You Love, and we'll ask her more questions about that. But Amy, thank you so much for having us in your craft closet with you today.
Thanks, Gwen. I'm so happy to be here.
Amy and I know each other from like events or like mutual blogger friends. A lot of us know each other. So Amy, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and kind of give everyone who doesn't know you kind of like your story to begin with and why creativity is your thing.
Right. So I grew up as an only child in Chicago. I had immigrant parents from India, and they always encouraged me to be creative and do something with my time, probably because as an only child, I found myself bored a lot. And so they encouraged me to make things, to go do things. And I think that really stuck with me throughout my whole childhood and into adulthood. What I realized is that they came to this country thinking that they could achieve anything that they wanted. That was like the American dream, right? To work hard and make a good living and have a nice family and just be good people in general. And I think that their fear of going out on their own was very real, and I saw that in them, but they always had a desire to have their own business. And so I think that I just carried on this fate that I would have my own thing, doing what I love, encouraging others to get creative and do what they love too. And by doing that, just filling your life full of wonderful experiences. And so now I'm just a full-time entrepreneur. I have a lifestyle brand called Amy Tangerine. We do a variety of different projects. We work with brands. We also have scrapbooking supplies. I had a t-shirt line for a very long time. And the book, Craft the Life You Love, is all about infusing creativity, fun, and intention into your everyday.
That's so awesome. So backtrack a little bit. I didn't even know about this. So your parents were from India?
Yeah, they were both born in India, born and raised there. And my mom actually just got back from a 3-week trip there. And so I think that because they grew up in a culture that was different than theirs, and they had to sort of assimilate, although there is a large Chinese population in different parts of India, they found themselves, at least my dad did, as sort of outsiders. And so they really wanted me to be Americanized, and they didn't force continuing learning Chinese on me, which is probably a regret because I can understand it, but I can't speak it back. So it makes me feel really silly that when I took a trip to China about 10 years ago, I could understand what they were saying, but I could not express the words back to them. And it felt very awkward in a sense, but my identity, I think, was very much based on, you know, doing things, achieving things, being who you are, but also making sure that you're doing something that you're really passionate about. And that was very much encouraged. And I don't know if that's because my mom grew up very poor and she wanted me to make sure that I was not only, you know, making good money, but also doing things that I was very passionate about.
Awesome. So earlier on, you already kind of started expressing and exploring that creativity, which is great. And tell us about how that like translated when you know, went to school and kind of what you were doing for work to pay the bills.
Right. So I collected a bunch of stickers and stationery. I'm not sure if you collected pencils, mechanical pencils, erasers.
Yes.
I even have a Post-it note collection that I still have. And I think that my passion towards paper products fueled what I do now, but I didn't realize it at the time because I have been working since I was 15 years old. My first job was at McDonald's. I was a cashier and the drive-through girl, and I just worked 2 days a week, Tuesday nights after school and Sundays. And I think that my parents really instilled this beautiful work ethic in me is with just being able to do things. I was working minimum wage at McDonald's, but they were giving jobs to, I think I was 14 or 15, so it was younger than most places, most companies, and I just wanted to make some money to be able to do things that I wanted to do, right?
And buy your stickers and your stationery, right?
Yes, exactly. At that time, I was probably buying a lot of markers, journals, maybe magazines to cut stuff out of. And that was before blogs and anything, right? So before the internet, that was like pre-internet when I got into that obsession. So you could get magazines and cut stuff out and make your vision boards. And I didn't even know what I was doing at the time, but I was just making these collages. And it turns out, I think a lot of that really fueled where I am today, because I basically worked all the time. When I went to college, I was doing things for my roommates. I was actually sewing. So I became obsessed with sewing, and I made my prom dress in high school. I made a friend's prom dress in high school. And then in college, I was making formal dresses for my friends. So, I wasn't making that much money doing it, but it felt good being able to create something with them that they loved, sort of designing it with them, choosing the fabrics, choosing the patterns. And then I charged them $100, and they had to pay for all the materials and the patterns. And, I probably only made like $6 an hour, $5 an hour, but it felt so great to be able to create something with my hands and have somebody else wear it for a special occasion in their life that they would treasure. And I think that bug kind of kept with me throughout college. And then I became a stylist, kind of on a fluke. I was actually interning at a modeling agency, answering phones for minimum wage once again. And by the way, at that time, it was $4.25 an hour. So just to give you an idea of how long ago it was and how old I am, I've been through a lot. But I really had this idea that you take on these jobs and you work hard and the rewards will come. So as I was answering phones at this modeling agency, a photographer kept coming in and he said, "Hey, I really like your style. Have you ever thought about being a stylist?" And I was like, "I don't even know what that is." And he's like, "Basically, you get to dress models for photo shoots." And I was like, "I love shopping, so that'd be amazing." So we worked together and did this project. I was also hostessing at a restaurant, and I ended up producing the shoot that we photographed at the restaurant using models from Elite. We had the shoot from 2 to 5 p.m., so the restaurant wasn't open. And we ended up getting the film back. This is before digital too. And the agency, Elite, saw the pictures and they signed me as one of their stylists right away. Wow. So I think that we all did it for free. We all did it sort of as a passion project to build our portfolios. And at the time, I think that's what you had to do, because before you got paid work, that was the way of showing what your capabilities and what your strengths are. And I didn't really know what I was doing, but to have this photographer sort of hold my hand, met with a great makeup artist who I worked with too, and it was just a great little team that we started and were able to go from there. And one of my first jobs was flying to Miami for a magazine to do a shoot for bathing suits, and it was awesome.
That's amazing. Well, it just goes to show that if you are really following your passion and it's something that you love to do, whether or not you get paid for it, it will pay off in the end. So I love hearing that. And so when did you kind of start your own brand? And when you started, what was your intention for that? Did you know you were going to sell products? Did you know you were going to work with brands?
Yeah, so it was actually entirely on accident. I was styling and I asked my mom to teach me how to crochet. So I wanted to learn how to crochet these arm warmers so I could wear them on shoots, so I could still pin the clothes on the models but still be warm at the same time. And so I made them. I wore them into a store opening party, and the girls loved them, and they said, "Where did you get those?" And I said, "I made them." So, fast forward a week later, I was delivering these arm warmers, selling them out of this little bag that I had, and a person in the store bought them right out of the bag, and I wholesaled them for $37, and the store sold them for $78. And 3.5 hours after I made that delivery, they called me and they said, "You're going to think we're crazy, but we sold out of half of them and we need more." So I just had to make more, and I got some press in Lucky Magazine, Women's Wear Daily, and then in the spring they asked, "What are you going to make next?" And I said, "I don't know, tank tops." So we started hand embroidering these tank tops on those ribbed wife beaters, were flowers. They were all one of a kind. And a friend of mine who was working in the music industry, I was up in New York doing a shoot for a record label, and they said, well, I'm going to LA next week. Do you think I should take some samples for you? Because I know the buyer from Fred Siegel. He's a good friend of mine. And it turns out Fred Siegel ordered them. And at that time, that was a big deal. They ordered 20 tank tops. And I just sort of felt like I was on the right path. Then I made a move to LA with a company who I was buying blanks from. And of course, a lot of things happened there in that mess. I also ended up kind of having this crisis where I found that I had more orders than I could fulfill, and I was going a little crazy. And so I put my company under a different umbrella, and they moved me out to LA. But a week later, they actually let me go. So I didn't have a job, I didn't have a place to live, and I had 3 suitcases, and my furniture was packed up somewhere in Middle America, and I just had to figure it out. And my dad said to me, "You're lost in the right place." And I just thought that was so comforting at the time, because I wouldn't have made the cross-country move. I wouldn't have paid $10,000 to pick up my life in Atlanta and move to LA. And something brought me here for a reason, and I truly believe that. So I just took a month off and sort of regrouped. And then I got some freelance jobs that, one led me to another, led me to the embroiderer, who led me to launching my t-shirt line once again and doing it the right way. And I just feel like when you're headed in the right direction, you will find the support that you need, and as long as you're staying true to what you believe in. And so the funny thing about the brands that I work with now is I had, a decent following on Instagram. I think I had probably about 17 to 20,000 followers at the time. And Dunkin Donuts reached out, and they wanted to do something for National Donut Day a few years ago. And they saw that I was doing these watercolor brush lettered quotes, and they wanted me to create something with that for National Donut Day. And so I did. I came up with Donut Worry Be Happy, with a donut being the O's, like one donut. And it kind of just hit, and it was shared a bunch of times. It's still shared today. And I think that, working with brands and aligning with brands that really you can get creative with and you can feel a synergy, I think that's amazing. And I feel so blessed to have those opportunities. But it really came from just sharing content that was true to me.
That's awesome. So before Dunkin reached out to you, were there any other brands that you worked with before then, or that you collaborated with, or was Dunkin like the first major one?
Yeah, so I was already collaborating with American Crafts to do my scrapbooking collection. So I think that Dunkin was probably one of the first brands outside of my paper crafting world. And the reason I was sharing quotes on my Instagram to begin with was because I wanted to practice my own watercoloring and brush lettering skills. So I thought it'd be a great way to have this thing called Motivational Monday, where I choose a quote from Pinterest or somewhere else online that I see that is inspiring to me, because I used to get this kind of sadness on Sundays because the weekend was over and I had to get back to work. Even though I loved what I did, it was just this weird sensation of getting back into the groove of, okay, tomorrow's Monday, I have to do this, I have to do that. Whereas the weekends, I really learned to take that off and take it easy. And so I needed something to inspire me and motivate me. And so I just started this side project that became kind of a calling card to other people learning that I could create these types of works.
That's awesome. And I love your watercolor quotes, by the way. They are very inspiring, so I hope you keep doing them. So after Dunkin, what was it like to kind of, because you were in the creative space, you were doing like art, but you were also like becoming like an influencer and a blogger, and I know you have a YouTube channel. So what was it like to kind of mesh like the physical world and the digital world?
Gosh, it's such a funny thing, because people ask me, like, where did you start and how did you get started and what makes you try all these different things and these different platforms? But to be honest with you, I'm a scrapbooker at heart. So when I found scrapbooking after I had my t-shirt line for quite a few years, I sort of came to this realization that I didn't love what I was doing anymore with the t-shirts. We had great success selling to over 250 stores. We, hit the $1 million mark, but I was really unhappy inside for some reason. And I took this trip to Thailand, and it was called Find Yourself. And I had this kind of realization that I needed to take more time to be inward instead of outward. And I think that there was too much stress going on. This is around 2008 when the economy was crashing. And, because I always paid my people first, and if stores weren't paying me for the t-shirts that they got, it was really difficult. And it really just hit me in different ways. And I was very burnt out. I think that's what ended up happening. And I found scrapbooking, and that's something that I love to do. So I saw these people sharing their project, and so I wanted to share it. So I started a blog in 2007, only to share my scrapbooking obsession. And I found a lot of people sharing their stories, and the industry was just so amazing, and you could get creative. Nobody had to put on what you made. You could just treasure it in your scrapbook, or make it for somebody else. And I have these clients who I scrapbook for, and I'm able to share their stories. So I think merging everything that I love in a way that you get to experience, what I do and what I create in the studio with YouTube, that was such a great window or opportunity to share even more. And because I was traveling the world teaching scrapbooking classes, I know not everybody can come to take one of my workshops. So it was nice to be able to sort of invite them into either my studio or Los Angeles and give them a glimpse of what happens here, because, so many people may not ever have the opportunity to travel here, yet they can maybe experience some of what we get to do and how we met by going to these fun events that happen here. And then I loved bringing them back into the studio and showing them how I document that event.
That's awesome. I think that's something that a lot of influencers now don't realize is like scrapbooking is like when you do it for yourself, I feel. And then now Instagram is like the public scrapbook. So everyone can kind of see what you're doing all the time.
I love that. I love that you said it that way. I've never heard of it like that, but it totally makes sense.
Right? I mean, we're like documenting on stories on what we're doing every day and kind of choosing what to post. It's kind of like our digital scrapbook. But I would love for you to talk to us about your book. Like, tell us, like, when did you decide that you were going to have a book? How did that process even come to you?
Okay, so this is actually the version that Abrams picked up. I originally self-published my book because I'm an overachiever and I wasn't having anybody contact me, knocking down my door to write a book. They weren't, and I didn't know how to do a book proposal really. So a couple friends had self-published their book through Amazon CreateSpace, and I met with an editor who said, "You're never going to write a book until you write a bad first draft. Once you write that bad first draft, you just hand it to me and I'll help you package it." And it was just sort of amazing how just that alone gave me the permission to say, okay, I'm just going to take this chance and go for the self-publishing thing. I also had experienced a miscarriage in 2016, and it was sort of heartbreaking and unexpected and just one of those life-changing things that I knew that would shift my perception on life in general. And I thought to myself, you know what? If I am going to not birth this baby, then I'm going to birth this book that will, either move people or it won't. And I just really wanted to make sure that I could touch a few people's lives by sharing my story and my lessons. And it's sort of a workbook too. I don't have the self-published version right here, but
the
self-published version was in black and white, and it had all these it has like little chapters where I tell my story, and then it's infused with these things that you can fill out and really to work on yourself, And so I think that having self-published it, I hired an editor, I hired a book layout designer, I hired a cover designer, so I had all this investment into it, and I launched it in January of 2017. Kind of just, I wanted to launch it at the end of 2016, but it didn't happen that way, and timing-wise, it actually worked out because it was sort of a self-help book disguised as this craft book, and people could take it and really just, there were 25 practices for infusing creativity, fun, and intention into your everyday. And it hit #1 3 weeks later in 2 different categories on Amazon. And that was the only place you could get it. It was Amazon. So it got the attention of some publishers. They emailed me saying that they wanted to publish my book. I didn't even know that could happen. I ended up talking to a few friends of mine who said, you need to get an agent. And so I got an agent who was amazing, by the way, and she shopped it around to different publishers. It ended up going up for auction, and I chose to go with Abrams. Yeah.
That's amazing. So for people who don't know how to do it, would you advise them to self-publish first?
Oh, yes, I would definitely advise them to. I have a video on YouTube sharing my book journey, and I think there's a lot of people who self-publish and the book isn't a success in their minds. But to be honest with you, I just really wanted, if 100 people thought my book was helpful, that would have been amazing, to me. And I think it's about setting your expectations of the purpose of why you want to write a book and put it out in the first place. If it's to make millions of dollars, probably the wrong goal. But if you have a story that you want to share and you believe in it, I truly think that self-publishing is the way to go. We have so many great resources available to us now that I would highly recommend that as a path, because I'm actually in the process of my second book proposal right now, and I thought I was done with it. I turned it in and they want me to add to it, and it's like I could just write the book, let me just get to work. Let me just do my thing. That's what I think that so many people don't realize now, is that you don't realize the grind and the process that goes along with it, because everything seems so instantaneous, right? On Instagram, sometimes you see process, but most of the time you just see the finished product or the finished beautiful photo that was captured. And I think through stories you're able to tell a lot more, but sometimes people don't want to know that it was messy. They don't want to know the real reason, and I don't think I've shared it that much, that's what propelled me to write the book, was this, life-changing thing that happened. And I think that you can rise from the ashes and create something that you just didn't know would have such a profound effect on people. And, I think that, on a weekly basis, I get a note saying that my book has changed them in some way. And I think that, or it has inspired them to do something that they wouldn't have done. And I think that right there is a reward, right? To me, that is amazing.
That's amazing. So right now, just going back and recapping kind of what you do and kind of how you monetize. So you have the book, you have brand partnerships. I know you have partnerships with other companies and you have products. What other ways are there, and kind of like what is next on the horizon for Amy Tangerine?
Right. So yeah, I definitely have multiple revenue streams. I probably have more than most. I also do speaking at events. So that's sort of a newer revenue stream that has come into play in the last couple years. I was speaking at events anyway by teaching workshops. And when you come to one of my in-person workshops, I think it very much feels like you're able to get a hands-on experience and create something, but you're also able to reflect. And we do a lot of work sort of in a very self-facing way. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but we really get down into what you need most, what feeds your soul, right? And I think that happens to take the form of scrapbooking workshops or scrapbooking layouts and little traveler's notebooks or brush lettering. But really, I think people just want to know that they're doing something that they love, and they want to be heard, they want to be seen, and they have the story to share, so they're sharing it in different ways, and they're connecting with people in these in-person events. And so I've really worked on these collaborations, and I think that's going forward more of what I want to focus on. I ended up taking my shop down, my website shop down, because I had partnered with a company that was handling that for me because I had just too much going on. But it turns out I really don't like fulfillment, and I don't really like, not that I don't like selling to people, but people can buy my products in so many different places that I'm able to support, let's say, scrapbook.com or simonsaysstamp.com, these smaller businesses that are really thriving in their field, in their niche. And I'd rather just do that instead of trying to be everywhere and be everything to everybody. And that has come to a realization for me in a very strange way. But I thought I could do it all. And I believe you can do a lot of things. I really believe that you can have it all. You just can't have it at the same time. Before we started recording, remember how we were talking about traveling and how much time it takes you to recover now? And you're young, you know? I think that it used to take me no time to recover. I would just be on to the next project and on to the next thing. And I think that now I'm really taking the time to make sure that I'm just being instead of doing constantly. So I think for me, a lot of my revenue streams are going to become more collaborative, and they have been, but you're going to see more of it. And there are going to be other ones that you don't see at all, because I actually consult with plenty of brands that you don't ever see my work or my designs or my strategies, out there. But I think that as long as you are asking yourself and really checking in with yourself constantly about how you can bring more happiness and harmony into your life, I think that's where you'll find your path, and whether you need to do all these things or you just need to narrowly focus on one thing. Without having the shop on my site, it's been so nice to be able to just say, hey, you can go to these places and buy my products. Or, oh, they're sold out? Well, you should have gotten it while you could. No, I'm just kidding.
You snooze, you lose, right?
But I think that there is value in knowing where you are and either staying in your lane or trying different things and dabbling and having these side projects and passion projects that you can just attempt and not really put your whole life savings into. I think that's the beauty of creators these days. You can do so many things. I mean, the fact that you get to travel to so many places, but you're also called the LA girl, so you are hip and knowing what LA has to offer to those visiting. I think it's so wonderful what you're cultivating and the community that you are bringing together and offering. So yeah, there's just so many things, right? You got to choose a few things. I used to have a ton of energy. I still have a lot more energy than most people, I think, which is why I'm able to do these brand collaborations and take on these things. But not everything that I do turns to gold. I've had people tell me that, but there are plenty of failures that I've gone through. But, there are lessons along the way. I don't want to frame them in my mind as failures. I want to say that they're lessons. And I've always taken a learning from them to move forward.
That's awesome. Well, as creative people, we love to do so many different things, right? But as both of us know, you can't put 100% of yourself in everything, because it's just not how it works. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, it just doesn't happen. So speaking of lessons, if you had to give a lesson to someone who was just starting right now, fresh out of the gate, they saw your book, they're inspired by you, and they're creative, but they don't really know how to get started in the digital influencer world, what is one lesson that you could share with them on what to do right now?
I would say start your own thing that you just have as your portfolio, whether it's a blog, whether you're focusing on your Instagram. And don't worry about how the money is going to come, because I certainly did not start my Instagram thinking that I would have over 100,000 followers. That wasn't my goal at all when I started back in 2011, actually. And my goal was to get the cool filters that Instagram had so that I could print the photos for my scrapbooks. So I think if you are very clear on sort of how you want to feel in the creative space, do those things from that feeling instead of setting your goal at a certain number. I think that nowadays we're so hung up on numbers, but really if we're, let's say, crashing and burning, when I had $1 million t-shirt line and I was so burnt out inside, that's not fulfilling. I think you have to really identify for yourself and get clear on what your goals are. And maybe your goals are numbers. I mean, I certainly, when I was at 80,000, I certainly wanted to get to 100,000 on Instagram. But what I found was that truly you have to stay true to yourself. I mean, and that's the thing. So you can try different things, but at the end of the day, you can push yourself creatively, but you have to make sure that you're doing well inside. And that's something that I don't think that we focus on as creatives so much. but hopefully there'll be more talk about that. And that's sort of the direction that I'm going to, is spiritually and with wellness and using creativity as sort of a nutrient almost, you know, it's a part of the whole thing. And so how do we nourish ourselves with creativity, connection, commitment to our happy life? I think there's no one recipe either. And so know that your path is not going to look like somebody else's. But if there's something that you want to try, go for it. But I really think that you should have something that you can call your own and stick with it. And there's something to being able to say that, you know, I've been on Instagram or I've had my own blog since whatever, and making a commitment or starting a YouTube channel. I think that it's so much, starting sometimes is the hard part for people, but really staying consistent and bringing your audience what they want, I think, on a regular basis is really key.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing today, Amy. Where can everyone find you?
I have a website, Amy Tangerine. I'm Amy Tangerine pretty much on Instagram, YouTube. I love hearing from you guys. So if you want to comment on Instagram or give me a comment on YouTube on one of my videos, let me know that you heard this or saw this. And if there's anything that you have questions on, you know, reach out. Yeah, and I hope you feel inspired to keep those creative juices flowing, because you guys have a gift, okay? And you have to be willing to share it and be willing to take those chances.
That's awesome. We'll put all the links for Amy in this video as well. And I will see you guys later. Thanks for joining us. Bye.